Previously on the program, we told you about the decision in Haven, Kansas to remove the phrase, "In God We Trust," from their police cars. Well, last night, the city council met to reconsider their previously unanimous vote. And we've been following the story here, and I'm pleased to report that after a petition campaign spearheaded by FRC Action, 19,000 signatures were submitted in support of the reversal of this decision. And the council subsequently voted 3-2 to overturn that decision. Joining me now to discuss what happened is Pastor Chris Powell of the Haven Baptist Church there in Haven, Kansas. Chris, welcome back to the program.
Hello, sir. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you. Tell us what happened last night.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend in person, but I talked to a number of people who were there, and more or less, I think what we all anticipated happened. People spoke up, and they got involved, both from our community and beyond, and a number of people showed up in that meeting and spoke and gave their opinion. And, I think the city council heard that, and as you just stated, 3 of them changed their mind on that position. And we were able. I saw a police cruiser cruising around Haven today, and that phrase is already back on the vehicle.
Well, we are glad to hear that. Tell me your perspective on what was it that led them to originally make the decision to take this off of the police vehicles, because it seems like a small thing, but it's a significant thing to be sure. But then what led to them changing their mind? What kind of input, what were the arguments being made that led 3 of the city council members to change their decision?
Sure. I think in anything, certainly in a small town, not an exception to this, that, personal opinions can go a long way. And I think there are a couple people on the council who had a different position and maybe approached it from, we can avoid a lawsuit in the future if we keep this phrase off of there, and didn't really think it would be an issue. And honestly, from what I've heard, the 3 council people that changed their position, they were kind of maybe on the fence anyway. They just went along with what the other 2 had done. And I think when they realized that it was a big deal to the people of Haven and beyond that, they understood that the way it should be, that it was the will of the people here in Haven to have that phrase on the vehicles. And, like we've discussed already, thankfully, that happened in our community, and I'm thankful for the leadership of our community, even those who disagreed, who are willing to reconsider that opinion, who are willing to let the people have a say in that matter.
And I want to talk about that for a moment, because this is a local issue, but it's become something of a national story because it's symbolic. How would you describe the impact that this local issue has had on your community? Created fractions? Has it brought people together? What's the impact there?
Well, I think it has brought people together. I think it even maybe woke a few people up that, hey, this phrase on a vehicle in many ways, like you mentioned, is symbolic of who we are as people. And as a local pastor in my community, we even had a few additional new families show up to church service or tell me, hey, we need to take that step in including God back in our life. At the same time, of course, there are people who have a different opinion, and it does create friction. I'm thankful in our community that we live together in a small town, so we see each other all the time. And I'm thankful that we've been able to work through it and try to understand each other's position. Because at the end of the day, we understand as Christian people that, hey, we're not fighting a battle against flesh and blood, but there's a spiritual element to it. And that's why that phrase is so important to Christian people, because we understand that it's bigger than just the person across from me is my enemy. but there's a bigger spiritual battle taking place, and it's our job not only to fight politically, but to fight spiritually for the souls of people. And I think our community is rallying around that idea that we can get to know and build relationships with people that are different than us, and that through that we have an opportunity to do the most important thing, which is share Christ with them and let them have what we have in their lives.
To that point, and I do want to get into that for a moment if I can, because you are a pastor, which means your primary calling is not necessarily to influence the city council, though you're not opposed to that, but to be ambassadors for the gospel in the place where God has sent you. How would you say your activism, if I may, if that's the right word, or your involvement on this issue, your willingness to speak publicly about this, how do you think it's affected your overall ministry in that community?
Yeah, I think, there are a lot of people who honestly have done much more locally on this specific issue. But of course, people heard that I was on Washington Watch, and I think they were excited by it. They were invigorated by it a little bit. And several people have told me, hey, thank you for speaking on our behalf, on behalf of our community and our values and what we stand for here. And that was one of my big concerns is, what goes out, we're not used to a national audience, and what goes out reflects on our community. And of course, we want to be represented accurately, just like any person and or any community. But I think people are kind of waking up to this reality that this can happen even in a place like this. It's not just exclusive to urban areas, even in a place that's primarily Republican or Christian, conservative, whatever phrases you want to use. It's still possible for those things to happen. And we can't sit on our hands in any arena. And we have to be, as the Bible tells us, proactive. And we need to be on mission for the gospel.
And that's exactly right. And we thank you for being on mission there. And we do hope and we pray for you and your friends there in Haven, Kansas, that this will not be a moment of division, but that this will be create an awareness of the fact that we have a role to play and that we can come together even around things that are difficult if we do it in a spirit of humility and in a spirit of respect for each other, that these can be growth opportunities that don't hinder the gospel, but in fact allow us to advance the gospel. Chris Powell, thank you so much for your time today and all you're doing for the gospel.
Well, thank you so much for having me.